Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you to Charlene and to Mark, wherever Mark may be, particularly for inviting me here today. I'm a university-based researcher and teacher at University of Cape Town in South Africa, but I have a long involvement of working on science and technology policy and issues and working in government, in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, but also with our Science and Technology Ministry. And I thought that I'd say a little bit about some of the challenges that we're facing in South Africa as a view to looking at some of the issues that government is concerned with in promoting innovation. And I'm taking South Africa, obviously, as the example that I know, but I'm hoping that what I have to say has some more generalized import. And I thought to raise just a couple of issues. I'm very conscious of the time needs. So I think that everybody in the innovation area recognizes that innovation is an area of pronounced market failure. We know that the social returns from innovation are higher than the private returns. I think that's well known. I don't need to go into that. But I think that in a developing country context, certainly in a middle income context, like South Africa and other BRIC countries that Ludo alluded to, I think the market failure is particularly pronounced. And there essentially are two reasons why I think this is so. The first one, I think, relates to the macro environment within which most middle-income countries are followed today. And in most middle-income countries, we now use monetary policy as focused on inflation targeting. And the essence of inflation targeting, essentially, of course, as you would know, is that you use the interest rate as the anchor on the inflation side. So what that means, and what that certainly meant in South Africa, is that returns from government bonds, your interest rates are higher than your rate of inflation, returns from government bonds are very high. So you've got a very secure source of investment. Government bonds give you a high real yield. But secondly, many of these countries have well-developed firms and well-managed stock exchange. That's certainly the situation in South Africa. So that you have a source of returns in the stock exchange which are generally well-organized, highly liquid, well-concentrated firms. The returns are high. So the net result of that is that resources tend to flow to very well-established activities. So if you're looking to invest money either as a foreign investor or as a local investor, you look at a country like South Africa, you choose government bonds or you choose investments in the stock exchange. And in South Africa, certainly we've got large sums of money, both local and foreign, flooding into the treasury bills, government bonds, or going into the stock exchange. So, and we have a very well-developed financial system. But the one financial product that you find very difficult to get in middle-income countries like South Africa is if you're starting a new company and you're technology-based and you are pre-revenue and you go out to look for venture capital type funding or other forms of support, those are really lacking in that context, very much lacking. So you get well-developed financial products, but very little in this space. So one of the consequences of that is that we find very few emergent firms, new firms starting on a technology basis, and we think that one of the major problems as to why firms are not developing is that they don't find the financial incentive, the financial products that they need pre-revenue to launch them into the market. Second issue I think that we have, particularly in South Africa, is that we have a skill shortage. So we have massive unemployment for unskilled, but skill shortages at the top. And of course, if you graduate as a scientist or engineer or whatever, you leave a university, you're well qualified, the chances are that you choose to go into well-established activities. The well-established firms that have got linkages with the universities, bursaries for students, etc. It's particularly prevalent in South Africa, as I'll say. Actually takes a racial basis in South Africa. So it's very difficult, very less attractive for people, particularly for black people, to go into risky, high risk areas when there are so many established possibilities for jobs and positions. That's a little bit unlike the European or the US situation where everybody's struggling for a job in a sense, even if you're skilled. But in our context, if you have skills, there really are major skill shortages. So again, both the skills and the resources are being attracted into well-established type activities. So we have macro and monetary policies that cause problems for us in terms of encouraging innovation and the development of new innovative firms. We also have skill shortages that do the same. And the net result is that what we have, what we term in government, an innovation chasm. So at least in South Africa, and I think Ludo's data showed similar things, we do relatively well in terms of research. So if you take a proxy for research, numbers of publications and publication counts, etc., you'll find that we do quite well, and our improvements we've been improving in that context. But on the output measures, on the technology measures, if you want to talk about patents or you want to talk about share of high-tech exports, etc., etc., whatever output indicators you use, we do much less well. So the problems for many middle-income countries, I think, are very much less on the research side and very much more on translating that research into concrete products or outputs, firms, and new activities. And this is what we call the innovation chasm. So if you have such a chasm, it's particularly pronounced in middle-income countries, this is at least a priori a role where government should participate, because the social returns are much greater than the private returns, particularly when you're trying to diversify the economy into new areas, which middle-income countries want to do, moving away from traditional areas of development of economic activity, particularly in relationship to exports, but more widely. So you have this innovation chasm, and that means that there's a role for government. But there are, and I've said 3 challenges, but then I thought maybe I'm talking for too short a period of time, but maybe I'm going to talk for too long. So I've got 4 challenges, but let me just raise a few of those. So we've set up such an agency. We call it the Technology Innovation Agency. I'm on the board of that agency. What we try to do is we take everything from the idea, the research idea, all the way through to the commercialization. We play in a very long space. So we play between the idea and the proof of concept or the prototype or whatever it may be, all the way through to market. And I'm just going to raise some of the challenges that we have in this space. And I mean, they're challenges that I think any agency of this sort would have even in a developed country. The Technology Services Board in the UK, for example, has many of the same challenges, but I think they have a particular twist or a particular emphasis in a middle-income type country. So the first one, I think, is this question of when you have a restricted budget, and you always have a restricted budget. So we employ about 200 people in our agency. There are 200 people there, but our total budget, and I know this will sort of surprise you, is about £40 million. So it's a small budget. Of course, it buys a lot more, purchasing power parity, etc. You wouldn't employ 200 people in the UK on 40 million, but we have that's still a very restricted budget. So your first challenge is, what do you support? Where do you look for the innovation? Where is it likely to be? And in some sense, of course, we know about innovation that there will be particular areas where a country like South Africa will tend to be more innovative. So for a lot of reasons, we have institutions and supports for mining technology. Obviously, South Africa, long mining technology, a long mining history. We have mining, we have the supports for mining, the suppliers, the firms for mining, and we do a lot of innovation around mining. We're close to and we are at the technology frontier in mining, in many areas of mining, so we know that this is an innovative complex and we should support it. So we have particular areas where we isolate, where we have, if you like, sectoral support. So we have programs there. But we also know about innovation, of course, that innovation can't be predicted ex ante. You don't know where it's coming from. So you also have to have programs that provide resources to innovators in brand new areas, in areas that you wouldn't have anticipated. Might be in the retail space or in the health space or whatever it may be. So your first, a big question is, and an unanswered question, I'm posing these questions, I have no answers. But one of the, and maybe there are no answers, but one of the big problems is, how do you decide what you're going to support, which specific sectors you're going to support, and how you're also going to balance the support for particular sectors that you think are productive of innovation with the challenges of actually having an open innovation system so that you have supports for wherever the innovation may come from. A second challenge is this one, and it's one that I think we will spend some time talking about in this conference. It's relatively easy to talk about innovation in relationship to improving your competitiveness. So most of our programs, most of our measures, almost all of our measures are we doing something to enhance competitiveness? Can we see new firms arising that are producing products in the market? Can we see our international position improving? If we can, we're doing a good job. And we have metrics to measure that, etc. We work with firms, and that's relatively easy. But in a country like South Africa in particular, what about the issues of inclusive innovation? What about the issues of innovation that meet the needs of social needs of poorer people, if you like? How do we support that? And what should the balance be between supporting those kind of activities and the activities of allowing for more competitiveness or firm level innovation? So what is we have a great need for housing, for example, for housing for poor people, or water reticulation. Now, all of these things are not going to be met through the market. They're going to be met in some way through the application of public resources. What is the right balance, if you like, between these dimensions? And how do you understand some of the trade-offs that may relate when, again, you've got very restricted amount of resources to meet? And there are many issues around inclusive innovation, of course, many issues when it's not market-driven, where inclusive innovation is not market-driven. But for us as an agency, one of the issues is how do we give encouragement and support to those innovators coming out of a university with the idea about water reticulation, etc. How do we balance that with the need to create competitive companies? The third one, which I haven't got a slide on here, but I thought of while I was there and thinking that I may not have 5 minutes, or maybe I'm going to have. He's a very strict chair, so I'll have to watch it. But the third one, of course, is another challenge that we, again, all know about, but we found particularly difficult in South Africa. And that's, how do you get government to coordinate its activities around innovation? We know that for innovation to be successful, you need education to come to the party, you need trade policy to come to the party, you need your big line ministries, your health ministry, your agricultural ministry, the others to come to the party, your ministries of trade and industry, and coordination in government so that resources get allocated in the right way, and that there's a synergy rather than conflict between different departments, that the health ministry doesn't run away with its own health research, or the agricultural ministry doesn't. But you get this level of coordination. We have found incredibly difficult to do, very, very difficult to do. And when we've had missions from the OECD, etc., they've told us, your departments run in different directions. Get the coordination together. But coordination is very difficult in government, what we call joined-up government. And in essence, I think that there's a structural reason why that's so, and that is that really in government, innovation, for us at least, is a second consideration, plays second fiddle. Government says, well, there's only a few things we can really coordinate around at the presidential level, only a few national campaigns we can have. They may be around housing, they may be around water reticulation, but they're not really likely to be around innovation, because yes, innovation's important, but innovation's something that produces something maybe next year or the year after, etc. And our needs are immediate. And so I think for Callistus is right that there's more emphasis on innovation in Africa and in our country, but it's still very much a second priority to immediate needs. Innovation, it's very difficult when you go to Treasury and you say, give us some more money for innovation. You've got to compete with the Ministry of Education, says, give us some more money for teachers. There'll be 100 teachers in the classroom if you give us more money, or policemen, or whatever it may be. But for innovation, it's very difficult. The immediate return to innovation is very unclear. And if it is to be found, it's likely to be long-term. So within government, it's very difficult at the top to get innovation to be seen as a key priority, which would allow that level of coordination directed from the top that we really need for innovation. And then the final point, is
1 minute.
I've got 1 minute. Innovation and racial inequality. I have to raise this because it's an important issue in South Africa, but I don't think only in South Africa. In countries like Malaysia, it's also an important consideration. When you innovate, the people who innovate and who benefit from innovation policies are often well-resourced people. They are people with skills and to some extent people with some resources and certainly people with contacts. Now in South Africa, given the racial divisions, what we're finding, we have a black employment equity program, affirmative action program if you want. But once you have such a program, people are attracted to the areas where they can enter into big companies, they can buy into large, well-established companies, they can take their skills to the well-established companies. And we find that most black people in our society, for very good reasons, are moving into areas of established economic activity or into government. So if you're a black engineer, it's very easy to find a job in a well-developed corporate, earn a very big, good wage right away, etc. No risk, no problem. Family are asking for their family needs are there, they put you through university, you want a quick return. For someone who's white, the jobs in government are unlikely to be there. Your entry to the big corporates are much less. So in a sense, out of necessity, if you've got a skill, if you've got an engineering or science background, you probably go out and found a firm, become innovative. And so we're finding interesting a kind of racial division of labor, if you want to call it that, where it's generally not black people, not African people who are going into new innovative companies. They're going into buying into or taking their skills into already well-established companies. And there's a division here whereby the entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs starting new things, generally tend to be white and very few black persons there. And this is not an advantageous thing in a society that's looking for a racially integrated situation. So these are very limited and there's much to say, but I recognize, and my chair is very strict, as I say, so I'll stop it there. Thank you.
Thank you.